وسلم تسليما كثيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. As we mentioned last night about Salama radiallahu anha, the mother of the believers, she married the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the 4th of Hijrah after one of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passes away, which was Zainab bint Khuzaymah radiallahu anha. We ended with a conversation of the couple before Abu Salama, the husband of the previous husband of Salama radiallahu anha. Actually, her name is Hind, according to some, Hind. And Abu Salama his name is Abdullah, according to most of the scholars. They had this conversation that marrying after whoever dies first. So there's one thing that he said just before he passes away. He said that may you live a better life after I pass away, after I die, and that you have a better future in the best of well-being. Also, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that Salama radiallahu anha memorizes from the Prophet ﷺ, and it's something that we all should learn. The hadith is that the dua the Prophet ﷺ taught Salama, and then she used to always recite it. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khulufni khayran minha. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khulufni khayran minha. That, oh Allah, or akhlifni khayran minha, with either way. That, oh Allah, reward me in my difficulty. So, ihtisab, meaning that you are aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me in a difficulty, but Allah will also reward me for the difficulty that I'm going through. So Allah reward me and replace it with something better. Replace it with something better. The full hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ said that whenever someone is afflicted, you should say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We all belong to Allah, and then he mentions the hadith, this dua. So Salama radiallahu anha used to read that, and perhaps Allah knows best, that because Abu Salama heard her reading it often, and therefore wanted that to become true, and said that after I die, make sure you find someone who is better than me, and you marry that person. The Prophet ﷺ, of course, Abu Salama, he's also a foster brother, as we mentioned last night, that he's the foster brother of the Prophet ﷺ. He, along with the uncle of the Prophet Hamza, they were breastfed by Thuwayba. The Prophet ﷺ comes to meet Salama, gives her condolence, and then says to her that, would you like to marry me? Salama radiallahu anha, at that point she says, there's 3 problems. Number 1, I have children. Number 2, I have a certain level of, what do you call it? I feel the anxiety, or I'm trying to figure the proper word in English, that ghayra or ghayra in Urdu, not too much jealousy, but something that you know after marrying someone, I don't feel comfortable marrying another person, that ghayra on my husband, because they loved each other so much. Also mentioned the story, she cried for a year because her husband was departed from her and her child. I have a ghayra. Okay? And the third is that I'm old. The Prophet ﷺ says, as for your ghayra, I'll make dua and that will go away. As for your children are my children. I'll take care of them. Right? They had Zainab. The Prophet ﷺ used to love her a lot. It is mentioned that once the Prophet ﷺ was taking a shower, and this little Zainab was running around and came close to where the Prophet ﷺ was taking his shower in a closed place. The Prophet ﷺ poured some water over her. They were playing with water. Poured some water over her. It's mentioned in one narration that the water, it fell on her face, and she lived close to her mother. Her mother lived about 84 years. She died in the 60, according to some of the narrations, 60 of Hijrah. Her daughter Zainab also lived for a long time, and she looked young because of that splash of water. So the Prophet ﷺ said, your children, I'll take care of them. As for your old age, I'm also getting old. Right? He is now in his 50s. No problem. They get married. The Prophet ﷺ would pay 400 dirham for each of his wives. That is mentioned in the seerah. For Salama, it's not mentioned what he gave, but there are a few things that is mentioned that gave her a blanket, a bag, a sack made out of leather, and some pots and pans. So that was all the mahar that the Prophet ﷺ gave to her. It's not mentioned that how much she received. Did she receive 400? Is not mentioned about her in particular. Maybe the Prophet ﷺ didn't have and didn't give it. They lived very happily after that. She is one of the wives that outlived all her other co-wives. Even Aisha radiallahu anha died before her, according to some narrations. In the 57, I guess that's the date when Aisha radiallahu anha passes away. She lives all the way until the end of the Khilafah. Even at the time of Muawiyah, in his Khilafah, she is still there. She witnesses almost every tragedy. The tragedy of starting from Umar radiallahu anhu, his Shahada, and then Uthman, and all the other expeditions that happened in between. Ali radiallahu anhu in Kufa, and then again his son, Hussein radiallahu anhu Shahada. She is the one, this riwayah is mentioned in multiple ways. One is mentioned that she, Salama, saw the Prophet ﷺ in a dream, then the same date that Hussein radiallahu anhu died in Karbala, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ, and he had like dust over himself, and he looked like he's like traveling. He looks very worried, and he's like very intense in his in being in a sense of what he was going through, the grief. So Salma asked, "What happened?" He said, "My son died. He was killed in Karbala as a shaheed, and I was there. I was seeing everything." How does that happen? Umar radiallahu anhu stood up once on the minbar and he said, "What is that? Ya Sariya al-Jabal. Oh Sariya, behind you, the mountain." He could see hundreds of miles away, so that's possible. So that's one of the things that she witnessed all the way to, and even when in the end of her times, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was still around when she died, and according to most of the scholars, that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu is the one who led her janazah, and she's buried in al-Baqiyah. Very wise person, very intellectual, very she would understand the situation, could assess the situation and kind of come to a conclusion. She was very intelligent, wise. One of the great stories that is mentioned about her, that in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, right, the Prophet ﷺ was going through what he was going through, and the Sahaba also were taking it in. But in the end, they just couldn't take it anymore when the Prophet ﷺ told them, "Hey, we're not going. Take off your ihram, shave your head, and we're going to go back." Sahaba did this. They just kind of freezed at that time. This was one of the occasions where the Sahaba did not even listen to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were just in that shock moment that they just couldn't function. The Prophet saying, "Hey, get up and go and shave your head and take off your ihram, and we're going back." Umar, he was the one who was going hard. He went in and said, "Aren't we on the truth?" And he fought with the Prophet, then he fought with Abu Bakr, he kept on going. The Prophet ﷺ didn't know what to do. I mean, he was also in a difficult situation. He has to deal with it. He's the leader. And, people are not listening. So he goes into his khayma, his tent, and Salama is there, and he says to Salama, what should I do? In many occasions, the Prophet ﷺ took her advice, took her counsel. So asked her, what should I do? They're not listening. It's an easy, they're not going to listen to you in this situation. You have to understand that. Why don't you just do this? You go outside in the front of everyone, go start shaving your head, take off your haram, and change and do everything, and people will just see you and just do it automatically. The Prophet said, that's a great idea. He went there and he started the whole thing, and everybody just saw one by one people started doing it, and everybody did the whole thing. So many stories like that. She was one of the very wise. She narrated a lot of hadith. She would teach hadith and teach fiqh. People will ask her questions. In many of the books of hadith, you will find her name, Salama radiallahu anha. May Allah be pleased with the elevated ranks. Some of the things to take from it is that at times when, of course, that dua you should memorize. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa akhlif li khayran minha, or akhlif li khayran minha. It's a very great dua, great dua. Saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un prior to that. And of course, a person who leaves sins, that's also something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases in the rizq while protecting you, having this protection. One of my teachers gave me ijazah in this particular dua. Along with this dua, he say, salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you recite Surah Fatiha, and then after that you recite Ayat al-Kursi, and then after that you recite the 4 Qul ya al-Kafirun, Qul Allah, Qul Allah, Qul Allah bin Nas, and then salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at least 3 times in the end. So 3 times in the beginning, 3 times in the end, and blow it on yourself. If you have any fear, anxiety, anything, you just blow it on yourself, especially before going to sleep. Allah will protect you. It's mujarrab. I don't remember the hadith, but it's mujarrab. It's been tested. And my teacher said that if you have yaqeen in that, if you have trust in God, you have sincerity and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will even protect you from everything except death. And he says, if you say this dua and blow it on a dead person, Allah will protect that person also, that dead person. And then he said that one of his teachers saw someone in a dream, and that person was being, tested in his grave. So he went to his grave that day and read this on his grave and blew it around it. Came back the next day, he saw him the next day in his dream. He said, wow, yesterday all the du'as that he made on my grave, Allah reduced the punishment of that day. So it's a result. So this dua is also very effective in protection. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. That's one of the things that we can learn. And always to move on in life. You have grief and you can mourn that moment, but it's always good to move on. And maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has something better for you in the future. Number 3 is that as husbands, we have wives, right? Our wives are not here. You could make that dua for any family member, and even for your wife if she passes away. And especially, for example, a brother came to me and he said, there's a dua that وَأَبْدِلْهُ دَارًا خَيْرًا مِنْ دَارِ وَأَهْلًا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَهْلِ. My father passed away. I don't want him to get married to someone else. I want him to be with my mother. And so I said, well, they want to be in a good companionship. Make his next dar, his next home, his grave, better than this dunya that he left behind. And then when he gets to the next one, that's better than the previous one. And ahl, his family members, may Allah make you a good family member that you reunite from وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُم بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُم. We will unite them with their family members. So you have to be also good. So try to be good, try to live up, and inshallah they will be together. خَيْرًا مِنْ أَهْلِ. Your mother, when she dies, when she reunites with your father, she will be in a better state. So أَهْلًا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَهْلِ. It was better than the family member that he left behind. and now he's in better, and she's also in a better state. So you can make dua for your family, you can make dua for your wife, you can make dua for your, if our sisters are listening, their husbands and their parents and their children. It's a dua that has multiple meanings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten our hearts and get us close to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, 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 subhanallah,